Welcome to this special market update as we've reached the end of the first quarter of calendar year 2020. I'm joined today at a remote location by Phil Naylor, Principal Consultant with Frontiers Capital Markets and Asset Allocation Team. How are you going there, Phil?
Good, Wayne. How you going?
Good. Look, it's been a huge opening quarter to the calendar year, and particularly the last couple of weeks as coronavirus has really taken hold. Can you step us through what's happened across the quarter?
Yeah, certainly. It has been a big quarter, and as you mentioned, the major driving force has been coronavirus. What we did see is that at the beginning of the quarter, when coronavirus emerged, but was really just isolated to China, that equity markets in general were kind of looking through this as an issue. But certainly, as evidence emerged that coronavirus was spreading globally, we've seen equity markets react pretty severely. We've seen equity markets across the advanced world are down around 20% over the quarter, but they have been down 30 to 35% from their peaks early in the quarter. So some big moves there.
And so, how exactly has this affected investors?
Yeah, sure. So it's obviously a very complex issue. We've been thinking through this almost in a sort of three-step process. The first to think about what's actually happening with the coronavirus data. The second of all, to think about what are the potential economic impacts. And then third, thinking through how does stimulus measures from government interact with all of those. I think on the first point is obviously on coronavirus, it's something that's evolving on a daily basis. We're monitoring it very closely. We're also working very closely with our in-house virologist, Dr. Martin Thompson, who was featured in last month's video. On the second point around the economic impacts, obviously it's very difficult to pinpoint, but we've done some initial modelling work on this, and what we find is that looking forward across the year, when we take into account the big slowdown in consumption, household consumption over the next 12 months, we could see a very significant slowdown in Australian economic activity. But then on to the third point on stimulus measures. Over the last few weeks, we've seen a raft of stimulus measures announced, both overseas and here in Australia. And when we incorporate those into our modelling, we find that the economic downturn could be severely limited by those moves.
Good. So obviously, there's a lot of nervous investors at the moment as markets are tumbling. What should they be thinking at the minute?
Yeah, sure. So obviously, people will be looking very closely. I think the first thing to say is that if you do have concerns around your personal financial situation, you should definitely get in contact with your fund to discuss it. But I think as a general rule, whether you're a super fund or a super fund member, it's really important to think about sticking to your strategy. Again, historically, what we've seen in the past, when we've seen these really big equity sell-offs, there has been a tendency to want to switch out of a diversified sort of approach to investing and into something very defensive like cash. Again, historically, when we run the numbers, it shows that that can be really detrimental to your long-term investment outcome. So in some ways, it's really important to remember that investing is all about maintaining a long-term mindset.
Thanks, Phil, for that update. And thanks to you as well for watching this update video. Stay well and stay indoors.